This morning, we welcome Lee Kynvi as our guest minister. Lee has worked for 24 years as a music therapist and licensed mental health counselor. The last 13 full-time in hospice. They have 2 children and are in their 3rd year of part-time study at the UU Seminary, Star King School for the Ministry. Lee has a candidate status with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee and is currently a congregational intern at the First Parish Church of Groton, Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together in community, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Let us move into our service, willing to be authentic with each other, honest with ourselves, and opening to connection in all its forms. We light our flaming chalice with words from Reverend Erica Hewitt. The chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Arose as a beacon of hope in an atmosphere of tyranny. The chalice arose as a sign of promise that the marginalized would neither be forgotten nor ignored, because they are beloved and precious in the eyes of the holy. This morning we remember all of the people who have been told explicitly or implicitly through police violence or government policy, through derision or dehumanization, that they're anything less than whole, anything less than beloved. As we each light a candle in our homes, may we make our lives a beacon, a symbol of our promise to draw the circle wide, a sign that we will not rest until all means all. And we follow the All Souls tradition of lighting a green candle, symbolic of our commitment to being a green sanctuary congregation. May both these flames call us to kinship with and great care for the earth and her living creatures. As we center our hearts, let us sing our chalice song for March, Rejoice in Love.
Rejoice in love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be. Rejoice in love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be.
I'm so glad to be with you all on this first day of spring 2021. You've got a guest minister on your screen, someone you don't know, kind of like a substitute teacher. And just that requires something extra of you. And maybe you have enough energy to give that extra bit today, and maybe you're not sure. Either way, I'm glad you're here, and you're welcome exactly as you are. Grumpy and under-caffeinated, fresh and awake, reeling from getting knocked around by this life. Weary after more than a year of pandemic time. Heavy with grief. Maybe also okay enough. Maybe even hopeful with news of vaccines, of a bill passed that will lift millions of children out of poverty. Whoever you are, however you are, you showed up here. And who knows, maybe it'll have been worth it. Maybe grace will show up too. In a word, in a melody, a smile, an opening. Maybe grace will show up in a ray of sunshine, in a moment of peace, ushered in because you showed up. So come, let us worship together. I recorded our opening hymn, which was written by Mom Muse, an acoustic folk duo out of Chico, California. Their music is soulful, their lyrics are bright, and they point toward spiritual uplift. They point toward connection with each other and with the richness of life. Mom Muse is a blessing. And with their song, Hallelujah, they invite us, when we feel ourselves sinking, to go down to the river, the physical river, the metaphorical river that never runs dry.
Every time I feel this way, this old familiar sinking, I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. By and by. troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. It's been said, and I do believe, as you ask, so shall you receive. So take from me these troubles, bring me sweet release, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. Myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. By and by, I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. It's been said, and I do believe, as you ask, so shall you receive. So take from me these troubles, bring me sweet release, where the river will never run dry. There is a river in this heart of hearts, with a knowingness of my highest good. I am willing, I will do my part, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. By and by, I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. This river will never run dry. This river will never run dry.
As a spiritual community, we journey together through life's ups and downs and hold each other in love. We take this time to reflect on our week, to recall the milestones, the joys, the concerns, the sorrows, the changes in our lives, and those in need of healing. If you have a heartfelt milestone, joy, or sorrow you'd like to share, you're invited to share aloud or in the chat. If you'd like to share, you can come off mute again by pressing the mute unmute in the lower left corner of your screen, or pressing *6 if you're calling in. Please share your name and briefly express what's on your heart. If you're having trouble unmuting, give us a wave and we'll try to unmute you from this end. After each person shares, we will drop a stone in water, symbolic of the water gathered and blessed in this year's water ceremony. Please know that this section won't end up on the final recording. For all the sorrows and all the joys spoken aloud and held quietly in our hearts, we drop one final stone.
Our centering hymn this morning is Where You Go by Shoshana Jedwab. She is the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and so As such, she has a real acute understanding of the importance of providing safe haven when people are fleeing violence and discrimination. Where You Go is a song for everyone who insists on compassion and inclusion in our society. So it's a song for all of us here. The text is from the book of Ruth. And Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." This is a zipper song. It accepts all sorts of words in it. This morning we're going to sing it with beloveds, and then ancestors, and then children. It repeats a lot. And so you will be able to sing along. So take advantage of this time when you're at home and you can sing along without fear of however people get scared of their voices and all that. Just sing, just sing. It feels good. Where you go, I will go, beloveds. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloveds. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, where you lie, I will lie, beloveds. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloveds. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine ancestors. Where you go, I will go, ancestors. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, ancestors. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, where you lie, I will lie, ancestors. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, ancestors. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Now with children. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, where you lie, I will lie, children. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, children. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. So I'm going to invite us all into a time of meditation and prayer, first in words, then in silence, then in melody, as is your custom. Blessed love of the universe, sacred current of beauty, energy of pure compassion and mystery, holding us all inextricably connected, each to the other. We open ourselves in prayer. We open ourselves to the not knowing. We hold in our hearts everyone whose spirit lurched and sputtered this week when we heard Pope Francis say that the Catholic Church could not bless same-sex marriages. We hold in our tender, open hearts all who are of Asian and Pacific Island descent, and all of us who love them, as our spirits felt the jolt of fear in the aftermath of the horrible shootings, murders near Atlanta. We hold in our compassionate, quivering hearts everyone who's grieving, all who are hurting, all who are encased in fear. We hold those whose lives have been cut short by COVID-19, and all those who loved them and who love them continually. As we enter into the shared silence, we open to you, divine love. We open.
A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. As members and friends of this religious community, we share our time and energy, our creativity, imagination, and vision, our talents, skills, and gifts in the streams of our individual lives to create a river that is both deep and broad. A river that is made of many streams, sustains life, and refreshes the land through which it flows. But the river of this community also depends on our shared financial support that makes real our shared values and vision. We will now receive an offering for the support of this religious community in its work in the world. You can give online at the link in the order of service and in the chat, or you can have a meditative moment of writing out a check later on today and mailing it to the church. You are invited to give generously and joyfully as you are willing and able. Thank you.
So a bicycle has two wheels, right? If I'm bilingual, I speak two languages. Binaries involve two things. This culture has created a system called the gender binary, and it says that there are two sexes, two genders, and they are totally separate, like these boxes. There's no overlap. They're sealed shut, right? And these are the only choices. Only game in town. No exceptions. Girl, boy, female, male, woman, man. You're in one box or the other. It's amazing how intense people get about this whole thing, how strongly it's enforced to make sure that tape stays on. But why? Why is it so important? Maybe the system is designed to maintain the power of people who fit in one of the boxes over the people who fit in another one of the boxes. Systems of power over require division. They require separation. Think about what the United States did with race. Think of the one-drop rule for Black Americans. The same divisions are necessary because in order to have a system of power over, we have to know who has the power, right? The problem is, it's false. It doesn't work. The gender binary system that oppresses trans and queer people oppresses everyone. None of us are free until all of us are free. The pandemic has taught us anything, it's about how interconnected we all are. And we are all diminished by this oppressive system, just exactly like we're all diminished by white supremacy culture. And of course, there are folks who are assigned female based on their body parts whose experience of themselves is male and the other way around. And there are quite a few people who just don't fit in either of those boxes. I happen to be one of those. I tried really, really hard for a long time to fit in the box. And it felt sad and wrong and totally uncomfortable, and also the only thing I knew. So I didn't know that other people didn't feel that sad and wrong and uncomfortable all the time. Think about a time when you were like trying on some piece of clothing, whatever you want, some garment. Maybe you're in a dressing room somewhere. And it's hard to even get on. You're like the jeans you thought were gonna fit and you get them like halfway up your legs and you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm not even gonna try. That, okay? So probably you didn't even bother to put them all the way on. It was like that, except I wasn't allowed not to put them all the way on. I just had to squeeze myself into it. And everyone else said, of course it fits fine. What are you talking about? But it didn't. And imagine having to wear that all the time, everywhere, all the time. That's just my metaphor of what this felt like for me. It may not work for other non-binary folks. I happen to like metaphors. So here's another one I've been playing with. I'm going to show you a quick video that I made a while ago to explain this other metaphor that I'm kind of enjoying playing with. See if it makes sense to you.
In talking with folks about describing my gender as non-binary, the metaphor that's working best for me right now is color. So asking if I identify as a man or as a woman is like asking, are you yellow or blue? And my response is, I'm green. So many shades of green. And some days that feels like both. And some days it feels like between, and some days it feels like neither.
So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's one of the metaphors that I can pull up and try to make sense of my world with right now. Yeah, you know how it feels like our country is going through a huge change over the last year and then over the last few months? And somehow you could say even longer than that, right? Somehow we're in the middle of it, and we don't even know when it started, and we don't really have any way of knowing where it's going because that's not determined yet. Because here in the middle of it is all the potential and all the possibility. It's right here. So maybe think about a transformative time in your life that in retrospect might seem clear. It might even seem like it was inevitable, like preordained. But think about when you were in the middle of it. My experience as an adult of coming to understand that I don't fit in those boxes, that this female garment I was handed, even though it felt totally uncomfortable, it was the only garment I'd ever worn. My experience of what it took to get me to risk taking it off, in spite of being part of queer community since the 80s, in spite of having my own daughter, who's transgender, who's 22 and a half now, transitioned at age 10 or so, in spite of having been a therapist for decades, what it took to get that ill-fitting garment off me was like a forging in the fire for months. It was like my spirit was melting down and I was moving through unrecognizable stages. I had no idea it was even about gender. I was in the middle of it. I had no way of knowing what in the world was going on. That profound meltdown was what it took to clear enough internal space in me to make room for this deep truth that I don't fit in those boxes, that I have to give up the only garment I have ever known. And I will never forget the moment that sort of truth dropped in, because it was like, boom. It was it was mind-blowing. It was life-altering. It was liberating. It was energizing. It was such an experience. And I was sitting all by myself in a room. I will spend the rest of my life unfolding this process that is gender. But that moment, amazing. The thing is, there are so many lies out in the world about gender and about biological sex, actually. I mean, whoever catches us when we're born takes one glance at our genitals and declares which box we're supposed to live in for the rest of our lives. And the actual fact is that biological sex is way more complicated than that. It has to do with chromosomes and gonads and physiological hormones. It has to do with reproductive anatomy and external genitalia. And in 1% to 2% of the population, those folks are intersex. Intersex and non-binary are different. So intersex is an umbrella that describes bodies that fall outside of the male-female binary. Bodies, not identities, okay? There are lots of ways to be intersex. So if you think about it, 1% to 2% of the population in the United States has red hair. 1% to 2% of the population is intersex. So you're just as likely to have met someone who's intersex as you are to have met someone who has red hair. It's pretty high likelihood. Non-binary is an umbrella term that describes anyone who does not identify as a man or a woman. It describes people who identify with gender outside of the binary. So genders are not actually limited. There's no official count. I have a friend who says there are as many genders as there are people. We don't have to keep track of all the names and all the genders. On the surface, the request for those of us who, for example, use pronouns that are not he, she, those of us who identify as non-binary, lots of us use they, them. There are certainly other pronouns available. The request seems like it's, please remember our pronouns, right? And that's the way it gets talked about a lot. And, I know that can be hard. We use the singular they in English already when we don't know somebody's gender, but usually they is plural, and it takes practice out loud, not just in our heads, out loud to get it right. And everybody gets pronouns wrong sometimes. I mess up all the time with pronouns. There's no problem with messing up. None of us have to sign on for expecting perfection from ourselves or anybody else. We just keep practicing. It's all about relationship. The thing is, when there's permission to be awkward with pronouns, to ask questions, and to practice, then it opens up for permission for all the ways that we're unpolished and awkward, all the ways that we're real. I also think it's not actually fair for those of us who are non-binary to think that it's just about language. Because I actually think that the ask, the request, is deeper than that. To be in mutual ongoing relationship with folks who are non-binary asks people who are cisgender, so who identify as the same gender that they were assigned at birth, that's called cisgender. Those of us who are non-binary are asking people who are cisgender to change how you're experiencing, seeing, and understanding us. Because the request is to understand us as outside of the binary. And so the implication of the request is that you actually pay attention to this male-female binary and that you question its truth. It is true for some people. That does not make it true for everyone, right? What we're really asking is that you start to feel some of what we feel when we encounter this world that is so divided into two boxes. When I ask you to perceive me as outside of the gender binary just by saying these are my pronouns, I am asking you to let go of a little corner of the binary itself. It takes less energy to move through the world on autopilot, right? We have all sorts of autopilots that we do. And actually, pandemic times taught us that our autopilot was just to walk out the front door without a mask, right? Now we had to switch it to the autopilot. Remember March, April, or whenever we started wearing masks? I don't remember when that was. May, I don't know. Oh, I need a mask. Oh, whoops, I need a mask. Oh, I have to go back and get the mask, right? And now it maybe is more autopilot. It takes a long time to change us. There's also a gender autopilot, right? That's when we look at people, categorize them immediately as men or women, then we use he or she pronouns, and we don't think another thing about it. The plane flies itself. Autopilot. So for trans and non-binary folks, that gender autopilot is permanently off. Categorizing people into two boxes, two sides, simplifies things, of course, right? It brings comfort and reassurance of a world that is in order. I get that. The problem comes when we make the simplification into the reality, and then we choose that over what people are telling us is their actual experience of their lives. I'm going to say that again. The problem comes when we make the simplification, male, female, into the reality, and then we choose our attachment to that reality over what some human who's alive and right here is telling us is their actual experience of their real lives. It's not easy identifying outside the binary. It's intense, almost all the time. So think how important it must be. Because no one transitions to become less happy. That's not what happens. This matters. Who do we want to be in relation to our fellow humans? Non-binary is an invitation to all of us to experience how deep and big and expansive the world can be. Maybe how deep and big and expansive we can be. The world is changing, and the number of people identifying outside of man and woman is one of the ways that it's changing. And we owe it to each other to learn about it. Who do we want to be as Unitarian Universalists, those of us who identify that way? What does our welcome feel like now to non-binary folks? If you take a peek at the report that the 2018 survey did of trans UUs, the majority identified as non-binary, and only 44% said they felt spiritually connected and nourished by their congregation. Over half of the non-binary folks said that they regularly experience marginalization in UU spaces, and that marginalization was the top reason people leave the church, leave the faith. So what do? We start. We just start. We observe our own gender autopilot with compassion. We can watch the parts of us that find it really hard to meet somebody or meet someone, even on a screen, and not have their gender be instantly legible. People get very uncomfortable. That's fine. That's just human. We can just watch it. We can smile and nod in understanding at those parts of us that learned our lesson about the boxes. We got taught the lesson of the boxes. We didn't ask for it. It's just like racism. We didn't ask for it, but we learned it. And so now we have to be accountable for our learning and our unlearning. We can be uncomfortable. That's the thing. We can be awkward. We can do that. We can grow our capacity for non-binary thinking and our capacity for a more non-binary worldview. Because understanding ourselves and the world around us as one thing or another just isn't true. It doesn't serve us well. It doesn't serve problem solving. There are so many false binaries that we need to break down. And so many conversations and problems and stuck places can be moved forward by asking, wait a minute, am I thinking binary here? Am I thinking all or nothing? Am I thinking scientific or spiritual? Religious or secular? Eastern or Western? Traditional or modern? This or that? God or no God? I've worked for hospice for a long time as a music therapist, and I have seen how much better people do when they can see themselves as many different things at the same time. Multiple truths. I'm alive and I'm dying. I'm anxious and I'm moved and I'm grateful and I'm sad and I'm loving. I had a patient a couple years ago who, when I started singing, they immediately started sobbing. So after the first song, I gently asked about it, if they wanted to talk about it. And they said they realized that they have been thinking of themselves as sick, as a patient, as a person with cancer, and that was all. And they said to me, but here's the thing. The part of me that loves music doesn't have cancer. That is the power of non-binary thinking. So we start by paying attention to all the things that maintain, for example, the gender binary, the words, the images. We just observe our thoughts. We just notice. We observe the world around us. We listen. Ladies and gentlemen, men and women of the armed forces, you'll hear it all over. And then we also learn from the kids. This wonderful generation called Gen Z, so they're like 11 to 23 now. And Gen Alpha, that's the generation that's like 10 years old and under. These folks were raised, if they were raised in a Western culture, they were raised with smartphones and with the internet, and they have been exposed to a huge range of different people, including people of lots of different genders. And it's just true that more exposure leads to more openness, leads to more possibility. The kids are the ones asking, wait, why do we need the tape on those boxes? Why are they sealed shut? Why pink? Why blue? What is this? What if we open the boxes? I personally owe them so much. I would still be stuck in that garment that did not fit if it weren't for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And they have my eternal gratitude. I will show up for them. They're my best hope for the future. And when hope is hard to find, I just think about them. And I believe that they will insist that all the genders are going to be available to all of us. So, come sing a song with me that we might know each other's mind. Join us in the closing hymn.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I may know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I may know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I may know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I may know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
So I hope you'll take this invitation to heart. Sometimes it's hard as adults. We're embarrassed to admit that we've got stuff to learn. But actually that embarrassment, which I run into in myself all the time, stops us from growing. So Reverend Jo has set up some times when she's available to talk with folks who have questions, who'd like to sort of broaden your welcome at your congregation, to understand maybe a little bit more about what trans and non-binary folks go through and what we're about, really. I'll hang out for coffee hour here. There's also a great course that's available from the Transforming Hearts Collective. It's available for congregations, and Reverend Jo knows all about that. In closing, I'm going to share a recording of a prayer that my dear, dear friend, Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve, who has housed me all the way through seminary, because my seminary is actually in California, but I live in Groton. So I travel back when we could travel. I used to travel. I'll travel again someday. So Barb wrote this poem for Trans Day of Visibility, which is in 10 days. So this is called Blessed.
Blessed are the trailblazers who brought us this far and are still trailblazing, still celebrating. Blessed are the drag queens and kings who remind us to not take life too seriously. Blessed are the gender benders, non-binary, gender fluid, and third gender folks, those who challenge us to reframe our gender paradigm. Blessed are the young ones who present fearlessly from the start. Blessed are their parents who make space for freedom and love their children fiercely. Blessed are the siblings and relatives who educate, support, and love us as we are. Blessed are the genderqueer youth, those who are fabulously flourishing, and those who struggle and persist. Blessed are the 90-year-olds just coming out, and those who have been out decades. Blessed are those whose lives were cut too short. May their stories live on through us. Blessed are the survivors. May they keep on living. Blessed are the allies learning to be accomplices. Blessed are those gathered here today, witnessing, learning, celebrating. May we all commit to continue showing up, fighting for justice, celebrating all the genders in life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for welcoming me into your congregation today. Go in peace. Be a blessing to this world.
Wonderful, Jacob. Thank you. I have announcements to make, and I'm going to try to paste them in the chat as well. First, on Tuesday at 3:30, we have our usual connection circle, which is open and informal conversation. On Thursday evening, at 6:30, the Connection Circle, our anti-racism small group, will hold its final meeting, I believe. On Friday at 10, that Connection Circle will be dedicated to go deeper with Reverend Joe on the topic of today's service, both between and neither. And next Sunday at 10:30, our Sunday service will be Wandering in the Wilderness, a service honoring Passover. Reverend Joe will preach, and we will welcome guests from the First Church in Jamaica Plain to join us. We also will have choir practice next Sunday at 9 a.m. And after that service, Reverend Joe will also be hosting a breakout room to explore further the things raised today in our service. I also want to mention that stewardship season is upon us with the theme Loved into Being. And I've pasted a link into the chat for our estimate of giving, and it's also on the church website. So please be as generous as you can as we plan for the next church year. That's it for the announcements, unless I've missed something.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Joe. I just want to mention that our annual meeting has been scheduled for Sunday, June 6th at 11:45. And the meeting is going to be held online virtual. And also, I just sent an email out yesterday evening to committee chairs mentioning that the annual reports are due on Saturday, May 1st. If you have any questions, then please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
One of the things that happened right away in the Biden administration, I mean, I'm recording this the day after inauguration. Check this out. I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's say I want to go leave a little message for President Biden. So here I am at the whitehouse.gov contact form. Contact the president, definitely. Prefix. And look at that. The non-binary prefix of mix is now an option. Okay. My first name is Lee. My last name is Kynvi. And I have no suffix. My pronouns. Now this asks for my pronouns. And what are my choices? She, her, he, him, they, them, other, prefer not to share. It makes all the difference. It makes visibility, right? It actually makes me teary. It feels regular. It just feels regular. It's so nice to just feel regular.